Good afternoon. This is Concert Cues. My name is Tom Singer, and I have the honor today of speaking with David Kim, principal violinist, concertmaster, we call it, right, of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and who will be our soloist for the concert on April 24th. We're, of course, recording it in advance, and so that's the way that's going. But hello, David.
Hey, Tom. So good to be with you. And I was explaining to you that the reason I'm all bundled up is, first of all, it's a raw, chilly day here in Philly today. Kind of rainy, dark, cold, bone chilling. But then also, I got my second vaccine yesterday, Pfizer vaccine. And after the first one, no any symptoms or anything. But today, I'm a little bit chilled and achy and, just normal. It means it's working.
It
It
means
means
it
it's
works,
working.
and
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
doesn't seem to depress your mood very much. So that's nice to see.
I
Uh,
wanted so much. I was determined to get vaccinated fully before I came out to Billings because this is the first, concerto appearance I've done since the beginning of COVID, or maybe in the middle of COVID. But all of my other concerto appearances have been streaming and all that stuff. But this is going to be, small audience or limited audience. But it's wonderful that there will be live audience there.
yeah.
So
Well, and
exciting.
I was curious about that. I was assuming that it was probably the first time you'd performed in a while, and 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 it was this set up specifically because you could have a small orchestra and that sort of thing. This was a concert that wasn't arranged a year and a half in advance, but something less. Is that how this worked?
Actually, it was arranged quite early on, and I have a really complicated relationship with the Beethoven Violin Concerto. It is
Oh,
considered the Sistine Chapel of violin concertos. There's so many wonderful ones, but the real kind of Mount Rushmore is like Tchaikovsky, Brahms, Beethoven. And then there's so many Mendelssohn, Bruch, Saint-Saëns,
yeah.
there's so many great ones. But this one is really the best by far, if you ask me, the most profound, and it's the most transparent. And I never learned it as a student for some reason. And then I became like a head case. I was like, oh, it's too hard for me. And so I always avoided it. And when orchestras would ask me, oh, we'd like you to do Beethoven concerto, I'd be like, that was the only piece that I would say, no, that's a deal breaker. I'm not going to do that. And so I only performed it twice in my life up until this point. But before COVID, I made a decision that this last year that we all missed out on was going to be my Beethoven year. I didn't want to finish my career and not say that I had really played it a lot, really just kind of satisfyingly filled quenched my thirst for it. And so I arranged several Beethoven concertos and they were all postponed, except Billings. And in
All right.
fact, Anne Harrigan, not only did she not cancel it, but she asked, we're going to have a little smaller audience and we're going to stream one of them. And can you do 3 performances? I think she maybe started with 1 or 2, and then she went to 3. And the answer was, of course, always yes. So I'm really excited. And it has been, a lot of people, I'm sure you too. I mean, everybody has had all these kind of projects during COVID, like, oh, yeah, I started baking sourdough bread or started gardening or I learned Mandarin or something, And for me, one of my things was I practiced Beethoven Violin Concerto every day during COVID. And it was so wonderful to not have any pressure, not have any deadline looming, concert, departure day, or anything, just to play it every day, to enjoy it. And then all of a sudden I got a call. I play at about 20 different retirement communities in my general area in the suburbs of Philadelphia every season. And about 10 of them were like, our poor residents are so lonely. Can you provide a video of anything? So I was like, yes, I can. So I have a couple of college age daughters and they're good with cameras and stuff. And so we recorded Beethoven Violin Concerto for sending it to all these different retirement communities. And so that was also good practice and getting nervous. And so I'm super excited for next week. And it's the end of a long road. And I'm so happy that it happens in Billings.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. So you mentioned happy in Billings. So let's talk a little bit about Billings and what your connection to this community is.
Well, I have a very small family. I'm an only child and don't have many cousins. But I remember as I was growing up, one of my closest cousins named Grace Kim, we would get together every Christmas for skiing. Our whole family would ski in Colorado. And, as we got into college age, we would, of course, sneak out at night and go to, the local place and go have a beer and just talk. And she always said, she went to University of Chicago and she said, but someday I'm going to buy a big house way out west somewhere near some mountains. And that's where I'm going to live. And goodness knows she did it. And she has lived in Billings for many years. She's a nephrologist, a kidney specialist. And so I've been before, I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I played with Billings Symphony and Anne, and we struck up this wonderful, warm friendship. And she's actually been to Philadelphia for some meetings and things. And so she stopped by and I take her into Philadelphia Orchestra rehearsals and we're texting each other all the time. And it's just a really nice friendship. And I'm just so grateful to her for this incredible opportunity.
And so how did the Beethoven work out of that conversation between you and Anne? What did you bring it up or did she?
I don't remember, Tom, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was I that brought it up first, along with all the others. I don't know how many golfers are out there, but I had one scheduled for the grandfather of the famous golfer, Jordan Spieth, who was contending at the Masters this last weekend. And his grandfather is a wonderful conductor here in Eastern Pennsylvania. And we had one scheduled and it got postponed. But yeah, so I'm just, I'm delighted it worked out. I mean, I would be just as delighted to play anything else, but the fact that it's Beethoven Concerto and 3 times, which doesn't happen that often in my career, usually it's a single one and done. The triples usually happen here in Philadelphia with the Philadelphia Orchestra, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But most orchestras that are not of that size, it's just one and done. So the fact that I can do it 3 times is just so exciting.
Well, and that's that's an interesting point, because the orchestra now is doing the 3 performances, but historically pre-COVID, we always did 1 performance with the rehearsals, and I sing with the chorale, of course, and so it's always been the 1 performance thing. What's the difference in your mind between those 2 from the performer's perspective? Why is 3 times better?
Well, at least from my long career in Philadelphia, I have so many countless weeks where we have that Thursday night, 8 or 7:30, Friday afternoon, Saturday night. And there's a certain kind of rhythm that happens almost without question. I don't know what it is. Like the Thursday night is just a little green. So maybe everybody is not quite as loose. It's almost like the first one is almost like an extra rehearsal. I mean, I don't want to diminish the importance of it or anything, but it feels in terms of preparation like we're still not quite there yet, where we feel completely comfortable and at ease and kind of cocky and all that. And then Friday afternoon has less pressure because it's an afternoon concert. And so it's kind of a good, like, you can kind of really dig in and build more confidence. After Thursday night, you're like, okay, we did it. We got through, it was good. And then Friday afternoon, build that on that confidence, you feel really good. And then Saturday night usually has an incredible electricity in the air and is, at least from our point, slightly different. But many times it just depends on who you're talking to. My colleagues would say, no, I thought Thursday was the one that was kicking it, or I thought Friday was the best, or audience that are at all 3, they might also have their own take on it. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
It always is. I'm curious about Beethoven, and he wrote 9 symphonies. He wrote a lot of different things. 1 violin concerto. Why do you think that is? Any idea?
I don't, Tom, but I'm gonna guess. Completely uneducated guess, said the concertmaster of the Philadelphia Orchestra, said the Juilliard graduate. But I'm just going to guess that when it premiered in the early 1800s, it was very unsuccessful and it languished. It wasn't performed for a long time after that. I'm going to guess maybe his feelings were hurt a little bit. I mean, he was a real revolutionary firebrand. He was a real, like, kind of rugged, the most rugged individualist. And so maybe he was like, you know what? They don't like my concerto. Forget it. I'm not going to write another one. They don't appreciate this great masterpiece or this monumental thing. Or maybe he was having self-doubt and he was like, well, maybe I missed on this one or something. But then, of course, eventually it became the Augusta National Golf Club of concertos. It became the Sistine Chapel of violin concertos. So it is absolutely sublime. And I cannot imagine another piece written for the violin that I could have practiced for the last every day, not every day, but most days for the last, how long has COVID been going? Since last March? I mean, I cannot imagine another work that I would not get sick of after like a week. But the Beethoven was revelatory almost every time. Like I would think, oh, wait, if I just do this with my head, something happens with the rhythm on that note. Like every day I would discover little new things. And it was just a joy to play it every day. I just saw my younger daughter who just went to college and down to Washington, D.C. just for 5 weeks at the end of school. It's all virtual, but she went down just to experience. And we were having dinner and she was like, by the way, she's not a serious musician. She was like, what is that piece you practiced all COVID long? I can't believe how much you practiced that piece. And I said, Beethoven Violin Concerto. You're like, oh.
Right. Very cool. So in looking around at some of the materials about you, I found some YouTube videos about how to be a concert master. And one of the part of what I heard was an awful lot about nonverbal communication, basically. And I've heard Anne talking about this too. The concert master, in a way, is the translator for the conductor, and kind of in charge of keeping the violins that are behind you as a unit, because they're not like the trumpets where there's just one person on a part. The principals of all the sections do that, of course. The concert master's got another role. And I'm just curious, because it's such a big part of your bio that you were the concert master of the Philadelphia Orchestra. You're obviously very proud of that, and with good reason. How does that role compare to being soloist?
Well, I would like to say that being a soloist is in some ways a little calmer, actually. You would think the opposite. But I really prepare, and then I fly to, say, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and arrive on a Wednesday or Thursday, and then I rehearse twice. Then I perform on Saturday night. It's got a kind of rhythm about it. When I'm sitting as concertmaster of one of the world's greatest orchestras over the last century, I like to call it like being a fireman. There was a study, I don't know when it came out, but they did a study. They had heart monitors on firemen, and it was dangerously, their heart rate went dangerously high when they were entering a burning building. And then when they were in the firehouse eating chili and playing cards, they were incredibly low, like an incredible athlete. So this dangerous range of heart rate, and I feel like a concert master is just that. There can be an entire concert where I'm just playing as one of the group. There are like 32 violins or something, and I'm just playing, no problem. But then some pieces have an incredible like concertmaster solo, and I can feel my heart rate. I can just feel it come up in the back of my throat. So I feel that being a concertmaster is in some ways more difficult. And then, of course, as we all know, in any industry, in any line of work, you have to deal with people. As a manager of people, it is the hardest thing in the world. And you have to have those difficult conversations, and somebody's angry at you, or somebody hasn't talked to you in 30 years, or or you looked at somebody wrong, even though you didn't think you did. Just there's so much stickiness in life, and it just comes out so much in an orchestra where there are nearly 100 of us who have worked our entire lives to get to that point, and then we are so terribly insecure as performing musicians, and then we are thin-skinned. Gosh, this is more like a therapy session than an interview. I'm like, so Dr. Singer, it's just it's much more difficult to deal with all of those things, and as you say, be the translator, or as I like to say, liaison between the conductor and all the members of the orchestra through, physical motion, could be facial expressions, could be the tilt of my head, could be, lifting the violin heroically up or putting it down kind of fragile, like all these things go into that translation.
Well, and from the audience perspective, it seems to me that you have to do all of that work as the concertmaster without drawing attention to yourself. Whereas when you're the soloist, the whole point is kind of to draw attention to yourself. So
right.
That was more what I was curious about. I wasn't really trying to be a therapist.
Well, you're pretty good, actually. I find that there's something I have to fight within myself as a concertmaster, and that is, I'm human. I'm trying to be humble, and I'm trying to be humble. But then my orchestra needs me to lead. But then I don't want to come across as a jerk, an arrogant jerk. And concertmasters usually have to wear back armor because they're being slings and arrows from their colleagues are being fired at them all the time. We're paid more, we get more time off, all those things. We have our own dressing room, all these things that are like elitist. Most people are okay, like, oh yeah, our concertmaster needs it. But then there might be some, Joey is like, he's arrogant, I hate him, and then I have to deal with all that. So it's very, very delicate, and I've learned so much through the years, and it never becomes easy. I spoke to my predecessor when I first arrived, very legendary concertmaster for like 30 or 31 years, Norman Carroll. And we went out for lunch, and this was during my first season. I was having such trouble. I just didn't know how to do the job. I was very inexperienced. And I said, Mr. Carroll, when will I feel comfortable on the job? When will I feel like, okay, I've arrived. I've got this. And he looked across the table at me and he said, when you retire. And then he did this with his hands, like it was so like bitter or something. I don't think he meant it that way.
Yeah.
He's a very funny guy, but it was hilarious, and I'll never forget that. And in a way, he's right. I'm never going to feel comfortable. I always have butterflies when I walk up the stairs from the garage in the morning. It's just a job of that magnitude. Hopefully it never gets comfortable. Yeah, it should never.
Right. Yeah. If it does, you're probably time to quit.
Exactly.
So there's one other thing that I want to ask you in just the last minute or so that we have, and that's you talk a lot on your web pages about the gospel or the hymn program that in Nashville that you go down and play for, and I wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
Oh yeah, a lot of churches have kind of Christian praise music. They don't do the old kind of Lutheran hymns, but they do kind of more contemporary modern. And there is a couple named Kristen and Keith Getty. They're from Northern Ireland, and they live in Nashville, and they are modern hymn writers. And for those Christians out there, you might recognize the song "In Christ Alone," and they composed that, and it just put them on the map. Now they're huge stars, and they heard somehow that I was a Christian, and I occupied this rather prominent position. And so several years ago, they were coming on tour through Philadelphia, and Keith Getty asked me to breakfast and said, hey, what would you think about, he just kind of wanted to talk to me and get a feel, see if I was the real thing or if I was a fake. which I am, but
We all are.
we all are. Exactly. And so that's been a really wonderful part of my career that has just by accident fallen into my lap. And so, yeah, they have this huge convention conference in Nashville on hymn singing every September, and it's grown to the point now where we're in the Bridgestone Arena where the hockey team plays. It's like 16,000 seats, and I'm playing alone there, and it's mind-boggling. But it's been a really nice way to. I feel personally that God has just blessed me with incredible gifts, like just indescribable. And I didn't quite understand for a long time, like, God, why did you put me here in this, plopped me into this incredible, arguably the most desirable violin position in the United States, or could be the world? And why did you put me here? And now I'm starting to be asked to play a little bit more, maybe not so much classical sometimes, maybe a little bit of gospel, a little bit of jazz, all, kind of rearrangements of hymns. And I feel like I'm being asked to be a bold witness. And those who don't know what that means, it just means just to be a good example of what a Christian is, a Christ follower. And so it's been a wonderful part of my life. And I'm just very grateful for that opportunity.
Very cool. So we go all the way from Beethoven to hymns and jazz in between. That's really neat. David, our time is up. I've enjoyed this conversation a great deal, and I'm looking very much forward to the concert.
Tom, thank you so much. Me too. I thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and I really look forward. Please come backstage whenever you're at the hall, and let's say hi.
Will do. Thank you, David. See you.
Bye, Tom. Thanks.